Jack Smith last night laid out his new January 6th case against President Trump. The big question is how much of those 200 pages that he filed of facts and legal argument on why Donald Trump, even after the U.S. Supreme Court case that granted so much rightful immunity to presidents and said, you know what? Yeah, they keep their immunity from the official acts they made as president when they're no longer president. You can't just say, oh, we're going to wait till they're no longer president and then they have no more immunity so we can sue them in U.S. courts. Imagine that if you were a president that had to go to war. What would happen to people who then would want to sue? So, of course, the Supreme Court said that. So Jack Smith is trying to work around that. He has to show that somehow these actions taken while President Trump was president of the United States were not actually official actions. We are 39 days from the election.
Right.
He's filed this. The Trump defense team now has 14 days to file opposition to what Jack Smith wants to use as evidence, saying, you know what, I think you're wrong. That should be covered by the immunity case. So they have 14 days. The prosecution then gets to respond. They could use up to 7 days in opposition to what the Trump's team said. That gets you to October 17th. If the judge were to rule immediately, which is not usual, but maybe in a case that, when you have the election coming up so close, if she's trying to impact the election, which may be, if the judge were to rule immediately, it would come out just over 2 weeks, Logan, about 19 days before the election. This would be a redacted version of all the charges that Jack Smith would like to bring against President Trump. But by the way, none of these, and the evidence, but of course, none of these he's been convicted of, and the case hasn't started. So why does Jack Smith get to tell the world the evidence he has to try to make Donald Trump look bad, even though President Trump hadn't had the opportunity to beat Jack Smith in court? Look, it tells you, it's not that the DOJ is going banana republic. It's already gone full blown.
Right.
It's already there.
You'll only be a couple weeks away from the general election. Well, after...
Might as well get paid by the Harris-Walz campaign.
They're starting over so he can get back in the news.
But they're starting over primarily not because they want to start the court case. That's not going to happen before the election. They're starting over because they hope that Judge Chutkan will allow them to release a redacted version,
a public version,
of all of the evidence they have against President Trump and why they believe they can prevail. 2 of the counts were thrown out for other folks involved with January 6th who actually went into the building, and the Supreme Court said you can't bring those counts. That violates the Constitution. I have no idea why he's still including these counts with President Trump, because he did not do that. So again, 2 of the counts seem like they should already be taken out. But that's really not what we're focusing on. We're 39 days out from the election, and he what has filed with Judge Chutkan a, quote, redacted version, Rick, of the evidence they want to present against President Trump before Judge Chutkan has a chance to say that some of that actually can't be used because of the Supreme Court decision. I mean, Rick, to me, this is not anything about prosecuting.
Yeah, look, Kamala Harris's campaign should tell him to knock it off. When you're 5 weeks from an election and you find a way to repackage an indictment with salacious details that mean nothing, that are nothing of substance to the campaign, but you just want to throw out partisan, red meat, it's really frustrating. It's frustrating to watch because we're the United States of America. We're not supposed to have a system like this. We're not supposed to have, people who are totally partisan with the entire power of the court systems in their hands, and that's what Jack Smith has.
Jack Smith, if he wants to continue prosecuting, doesn't have to release this to the public. If he was a real prosecutor, what does he care about the public, right? He's trying to get a conviction of his defendant. It's not that he's supposed to be telling the world, hey, this is who you should or shouldn't vote for, but it's exactly what he's doing. Because Rick, when you look at the dates, so then the Trump team has 14 days to file in opposition. Okay, so that's from starting when he filed last night, so that the clock is counting. That puts you at October 10th. The prosecution then has 7 more days to respond, puts you at October 17th. And let's say the judge ruled immediately, which in a normal case like this involving a new Supreme Court precedent, it would not happen, but I would not put it past a Judge Chutkan at this point to try and do it at least between 1 and 2 days. That would come out just about 19 days before the election, a little over 2 weeks. So right around there, the American people would be reading all of Jack Smith's evidence that he'd like to present against President Trump, but that has not been tested in court.
Well, look, you got to give it to the Democrats and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because their timing is impeccable. They waited for a long time to make these charges. They waited because they wanted to get it close to the election, and their timing is impeccable. Their timing is going to be literally 2 weeks before an election where they throw out a whole bunch of salacious, ridiculous charges. But this was the plan all along, Jordan. This is what they wanted to do. That's why they waited. They lied in wait, and then they pounced right at the right time. Again, I just have to say, I think it's worth saying, every single time we get on, the United States of America should not be in a situation where the weaponization of the courts and the legal system against your political opponents is allowed. Kamala Harris must speak out. She's not going to say anything, though, because she actually really likes it. She likes what's happening. She likes the fact that, the courts are doing the dirty work here. But it is a low point for America.
Yeah, and Rick, when you have these moments, and we are only a few weeks away now from the election, you're talking under 40 days, it does kind of, you have to reset, and you have to really be thinking about this when the media starts portraying all of this, because you can become, if you're the average listener or viewer of cable news or any of these outlets, you can become down about it. It becomes you become desensitized and a little almost depressed by it, but we have to encourage people to stay engaged.
Well, look, I would say that what you have to see when you're faced with the weaponization of your government against political opponents, when you're watching in real time people try to destroy our country and our liberties, I think it's time that you get really involved. You should get mad. You should get really focused on the election. You should talk to every single person you know and make sure that they get focused and they get out there and vote for Donald Trump.